Hi everybody, welcome to Get Stuck In, 7 days away at the time of recording from the Cheltenham Festival. We're going to have a big Cheltenham Festival preview coming up now. Short, snappy, to the point, and more to the point, some winners. First of all, in the company, the first half, Ben Linfoot and Martin Dixon. We might shake things around, we'll see how we're getting on. All good?
Pretty good, Niall. Yeah, it's that time of year, GSI, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course, yeah, it's around the corner now, isn't it? I said to you last week, Sunday when the Dex comes through is really when, and we know pretty much what the weather forecast is going to be, what the ground's going to be. We're getting a little bit of an indication of that now. It seems like there's maybe an indifferent forecast, shall we say. There's
one man who'll know better than any of us is John Pullin, Clerk, of course. Let's catch up with him. John, what's conditions like?
Yeah, we're in good shape, Niall. We just had sort of 3 mil back end of yesterday evening and a couple of mil in the early hours of this morning. There was a little bit of snow up on the top of Cleve Hill, but nothing down here this morning. So it's held where we are, really. A combination of good and good to soft ground everywhere.
Are you looking and thinking Simon Clace deserves a medal for how long he done it? It's quite tricky with grass growth this year, forecast the next 7 days. What are they telling you?
Yeah, it's an unsettled week. Combination of rain, sleet, potentially snow. Snow's looking less likely now here. So it looks as if it'll just be a combination of sleet and rain over the next few days, really. Varying amounts, a couple of the days we're just looking at a mil or two, and potentially some heavier spells, 5 to 6, 7, 8 mil could come later on in the week. But temperatures due to get up at the weekend, double-digit temperatures, could be up sort of 12 degrees, certainly Sunday and Monday. And next week, festival week, looks... we might get the odd shower, but it looks mild and nothing too significant as far as rainfall is concerned.
Good stuff. And grass growth, it must be hard with the way things are at the minute.
Yes, it's been a really tricky winter. We've just not seen the recovery that we normally would, particularly on the new course, obviously racing on it December and January. But we've had fleece down on it now for a couple of weeks. So where we have got grass under the fleece, it's looking nice and healthy. Certainly the cover's not where we'd want it to be, but it has improved a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Good
stuff. John, you're doing an excellent job. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Thanks for the updates.
Thank you.
Right, the first race is the Sky Bet Supreme. Michael Shinner's from the sponsors has been saying that there'll be some special offers, so do keep an eye on that. Facile Vega will split opinions. Martin?
Yeah, one thing I do know about the Supreme is that I will not be back in Facile Vega. I think it's asking a lot of the horse to bounce back from that performance at the DRF, and you're hanging a lot on the tactics being the problem there. Now I admit that they were partially to blame, but he was still beaten very quickly for my liking. I didn't like how he sort of weakened so drastically in the latter stages of that race, and like I say, I think it's asking a lot for him to bounce back and even improve on previous efforts on the back of his worst career performance so far. So there'll be better horses to back at shortish prices than him over the course of the week for me. So if he wins, I'll be losing.
What does make appeal?
Marine Nationale should be favourite in my book. They've laid him out for the race. Obviously he's had an ideal preparation, unbeaten so far. He's a horse with a lot of pace. He'd have won the Royal Bond easier, I think, if he'd have jumped the last quicker, and also if they'd gone a stronger pace to string them out for longer. He goes a long way on the bridle. I think he's got all the attributes you need to win a Supreme Novice.
Sky Bet Supreme is won by?
I don't know, Niall, but I'm against Facile Vega like Martin, but I think there might be a price point where I'll get involved. Okay. If everyone's against him and suddenly he drifts out to, say, 4 to 1, I think that sort of price would draw me in, because obviously we saw him win the Champion Bumper brilliantly last year. He's been a fantastic novice hurdler up until the Dublin Racing Festival. I think there were excuses that day, so it wouldn't surprise me if he went in. Marine Nationale, obviously, his form's been boosted, looks to have a good chance. And Ilite Tom, who won the Tatsal's novice hurdle at the DRF, he's going to get a strong pace to run at again, you would think, and he's definitely not out of calculation. So I think Willie Mullins will win it.
Okay, Ollie Murphy strongly represented this side of the RIC. Chasing Fire is a horse at a big price I think could run well, but the favourite is Facile Vega, trained by a certain Willie Mullins.
So I couldn't see any problem with Paul dropping him in a little bit in the Supreme Novice and coming through horses. I think he has the ability, I think he has the class, and as long as that race the other day didn't take anything out of him. I think he's every chance.
You think of sponsorships at the Cheltenham Festival, Sporting Life Arkle is very much one that comes to the forefront when thinking about it. And once again, Willie Mullins has got a strong hand. El Fabiolo, he was electric, wasn't he, last time out? Room for improvement in the jumping, but his engine.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic at Leopardstown. I do think everything panned out brilliantly for him that day with Dysart Dynamo going off so quickly in front. His jumping is a worry. You know, he missed the fourth last in Leopardstown. You can't be doing that on the old course at Cheltenham. It can catch you out, can't it? If you make a mistake late on in an Arkle, I don't think you're going to be winning it. So at the prices, I'm going to be against El Fabiolo for that reason.
Yeah, I'm more positive about him. Obviously, there's not much between him and John Bon at the top of the betting. It kind of does look the match race that the market has it. In El Fabiolo, you've got the horse that, in my opinion, brings the best form to the table after his Irish Arkle demolition job last time out, with some good, really talented horses in behind him. And I think he's got the best form, but also the most progressive profile. John Bon probably comes into it on the back of one of his lesser impressive performances of the season so far. And I do think El Fabiolo is going the right way, whereas John Bon is maybe levelling off a little bit more. So preference for El Fabiolo, but it's not a race I've got a very strong opinion on, really, because those two have dominated the market for a long time.
El Fabiolo, Willie Mullins, has he got a strong opinion on him?
That's it, you know, his form ties in well with John Bon, and I think it's all to play for. We were so inexperienced when he met John Bon the last time. He's got a lot more experience, racing experience, not even jumping experience, but just racing experience. That's going to stand to him, I think, and it'll, you know, it gives him every chance. I think he's a horse that goes to Cheltenham with a huge chance.
So the big Irish, El Fabiolo, against the big English, John Bon. I put it to you, Warwick, in 2-3 runner races, how many times do you watch a 2-3 runner race and think, wow, that was impressive? You know, it doesn't really happen. It's total, the nature of the race, i.e. the Arkle, Dysart Dynamo are going to jump and run. Warwick was about A to B, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought he didn't have much to gain that day at Warwick, and it was a significant manoeuvre, wasn't it, by Harry Skelton down the back, and I think Aidan Connell just got caught out a little bit. I think there was plenty of positives to take from that performance for John Bon, really. He's actually had a race going into the Arkle, which is something that he didn't really have before that. He'd shown how brilliant he was, he'd shown how good he was a jumper, he'd shown top class form, but he hadn't really been in a race. He has now. I think that might have sharpened him up a bit.
Okay, so El Fabiolo for you.
Yeah, marginally. Look, there's not much between them.
It's a great race. Some of the races we're going to come to lack depth. Whatever way you slice and dice it, this is a cracker.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching it. I'm probably not going to have a bet in the race, in all honesty.
You will.
But I doubt I will. But yeah, marginal preference would be for El Fabiolo, but that's the way the market's gone. You know, if El Fabiolo ended up a drifter and went out to 2-1 plus, I would get involved. But at the moment, I think they're about 6-4 each of two, and you know, it's around the sort of mark that they should be at. Like I say, marginal preference for El Fabiolo, but not much in it really.
Okay, the highlight on day one is the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Constitution Hill is going to be long odds on to win it. What's going to turn up against it? Obviously the Mayor's Race is going to benefit because of Constitution Hill. State Man will take him on. Is it a straightforward match? Is it even a match?
I think it is a match, yeah. I think the great thing about this Champion Hurdle is we're going to see Constitution Hill against the best horse that he's ever faced. Certainly the best hurdler he's ever faced. I think, obviously, we look at last year's Sky Bet Supreme, he was taking on John Bon, who he smashed 22 lengths, and we know how good a horse John Bon is, but in State Man, he's got a bona fide 170 rated hurdler to take on, and he hasn't had that previously. He's won his 4 Grade 1s by 63 lengths, and now he takes on a proper horse, and I think we're gonna see really how good Constitution Hill is. We know he's a fantastic prospect. He's a brilliant horse already. He's done things on the clock. I think we're going to measure him against a really good horse now.
Yeah, and I think that'll allow him to establish just how good he is. I see nothing other than a cakewalk for Constitution Hill, to be honest. I think he's one of them horses that comes around just every now and again. You don't get them as talented as him every season, and I think he is a very special horse. Obviously everybody believes that, and that's why he's about 2-7, 1-3, whatever, that sort of price. But I can't see him getting beaten unless he falls over, and that's very unlikely with how good a hurdler he is. And yeah, I don't see any flaws in him anywhere, but look, obviously excited to see what he might be able to produce against a horse, like you say, Ben, of Stateman's calibre. And
you think of trainers and races, CULN 3 times, Punjabi, Binocular, Epiton. It's just unbelievable what he's done in the race, Nicky Henderson. And earlier we did catch up with him about his superstar.
I don't know if he can improve, but maybe he doesn't have to, I don't know. But I mean, he's going to get some opposition, there's no doubt about that. Willie's horse looked very good in Ireland in the Dublin race the other day, but you know, we've just got to do our own thing. You're not going to get a very big field. I think you're down to, I think it's about 14 at the moment. There's all that's left in there, and some of those might not run. So, you know, I think the main thing with him is just keep it simple and hope he, you know, hope everything just goes right. You need a lot of luck.
Okay, let's look at the champion hurdle. Day one, sum it up. What's your best bet?
I've got a close eye on Iron Bridge if he runs in the Ultima. I don't know whether he'll be declared for that. He's got other options through the course of the week as well. But Iron Bridge for John Joe O'Neill, big eye catcher at Warwick a couple of weeks ago. They ran him over 2.5 miles, inadequate trip. He had loads of running left at the line. Very progressive horse. I think he wants a staying trip, which he's going to get if he's declared at Cheltenham. The Ultima for me would be the right race to run in him. That's obviously on the Tuesday, so very interested to see if he's declared.
Not really had a deep look at the handicaps yet, so I think John Bond will be my best bet on day one. But you know, the more I look at the mare's hurdle, I can't see Honeysuckle getting beat. I think she could be the one. I don't see her as regressive as perhaps the market does. And if she's, you know,
with some race,
a 5-2 chance, I think she's the best mare in that race, and she can prove it.
Day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival starts with the Ballymore. Over the year, you look at the horses that won this: Hardy Eustace, Bravink, Istabrak, all dropped back to be a champion hurdle horses. I think this is a good renewal.
Yeah, it looks a really competitive renewal, doesn't it? You've got Hermes Allen, a winner of the Challow hurdle. Now, the Challow hasn't got a strong tradition of sort of faring well when it comes to spring festivals in recent years at least, but I think it has a different take this year because Hermes Allen beat a very strong field. The runner-up You Wear It Well came out and won a Grade 2 mares contest in really good style at Sandown a few weeks ago. There's plenty more winners in behind him. He's also been and done it at Cheltenham earlier on in the season as well, and he came on the radar for this race immediately after that. So, proven at the track, I think he has got the best form in the race. There's plenty of others with lots of potential that'll be running against him, but he's one of the market leaders over the course of the week that I certainly wouldn't be negative on.
Okay.
I think he's a different type of Challow winner, isn't he, Hermes Allen? You look in the past, and a lot of them have been sort of 3 mile soft ground chasers for the future. I think he's a bit different. He's got more speed and class than that. So it is a really bad record for the race as a trial, but I think it's got its best chance of producing a Ballymore winner that we've seen.
Best of Willie Mullins too, Parapass or Gaelic Warrior. Gaelic Warrior is going to, when he hits the front, he go right.
Yeah.
Until he hits the front, he looked quite good at Leopardstown jumping wise.
Yeah, look, he's obviously put up big performances on left-handed tracks already, hasn't he? So it's a tendency that he's got to shift out that way. He's got Cheltenham experience from last year when he did run really well at the festival. Imperi Pass is kind of a bit of an unknown quantity still, isn't he? He's untested, he's done all of his work on the bridle, he travels very strong, he jumps well. He's a hell of a prospect, I'd say, for chasing next season. I wouldn't be surprised if we were looking at him as sort of Willie Mullins' twos on shot for the Arkle this time.
I was going to say Arkle horse. Yeah. He's got, even though he's going to go for the 2 mile 5 race, he's got 2 mile speed, hasn't he?
Yeah, he ran him in the Sky Bet Muscat Flyer, and every year you look what he runs in the Sky Bet Muscat Flyer.
Yeah, well, it's usually his supreme horse, isn't it? But this year they're obviously they've got to shuffle their pack, and it looks like he's going to go Ballymore. But as I say, he's an unknown quantity. I think he'll run very well in the race, but maybe just at this stage of his career be vulnerable to something that's got a little bit more match practice in higher grade races than he has at this moment in time.
Most likely winner at the minute?
Most likely winner. I share the same reservations about Imperi Pass in terms of experience. Hermes Allen, I think, will run really well, but I think the most likely winner is probably the Barry Connell horse. I think he brings the best form into the race. Good Land, after his win at the Dublin Racing Festival. Very straightforward horse. Did everything impressively that day, and there's probably still a bit of juice in his price as well, so be Good Land for me.
Okay, Good Land for Ben Linfoot then in the Ballymore.
The Brown Advisory is the second race on Wednesday at the Cheltenham Festival. I think the Real Whacker is the horse we should start with. I still think he's gone under the radar a little bit for Patrick Neville, an Irish trainer who's relocated over to North Yorkshire. And what he's doing on a daily basis with some average horses, and he's got a chance with a good horse here. I think he's done really well. He's still in the Gold Cup, but he's going to run here by the sounds of things. Yeah,
it's interesting, that Gold Cup entry, isn't it? He's that type of novice. He's a real bold jumping novice, and yeah, I'd give him a chance. He's got Cheltenham form. He ticks a couple of boxes, doesn't he? And I don't think it's a great renewal of this race. I look at it and I think, you know, when you look at previous Brown Advisories over the last 10 years, this would be one of the weaker renewals, and I think plenty of the horses in there have got plenty to prove. You know, the likes of Sir Gerhard, who you couldn't back on his chasing debut. Obviously, he's got a great batch of novice hurdle form to fall back on, but you couldn't back him on that one appearance over fences. So I do think it's lacking depth, this race.
Jerry Colombe, who's likely to be market leader for the race, he's a horse that's hard to get a handle on because he's quite idle. He's a little bit of a lazy horse, really, but he always has done enough in his career so far, and he's still unbeaten. I saw him win at Sandown a few weeks ago over 2.5. He's obviously crying out for a longer trip, which he's going to be granted at Cheltenham. So that is definitely going to suit him. I'd wonder about how strong his actual form is, to be honest with you, but he is potentially a big improver going up to the 3-mile trip. But at the prices that they are, the Real Whacker you've mentioned already looks very solid. Proven Cheltenham horse, very good jumper. He clocked a big time as well when he beat some good horses. Monmoral was second behind him last time out, who, yeah, he's been a bit of an underachiever over the last couple of seasons, but he's still a horse capable of running to a high level on a pretty regular basis. And the Real Whacker had him cooked, you know, a good way out really, and was always holding on. So he's got all the hallmarks and attributes of a horse for a big performance, I think, at the festival, and he's not had too busy a campaign either. He goes into the race pretty fresh next week.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement there for once. And the Real Whacker in the Brown Advisory. The flagship race on day 2 at the Cheltenham Festival is the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. Edward Stone and Ergamine, they're back. Start with Ergamine, should we? Obviously won the race last year. What it took to win the race last year, probably not a lot. It'll take a lot more this year.
It will, absolutely. And this year he's got to come back from a below par performance, and a rare below par performance. Now, he was still right in the mix when he made a mistake at the final fence, admittedly, but that was a really competitive race and he came up short ultimately. A mistake let him down. It could let him down again. And there is a chance, in my opinion, that showed a vulnerability about Ed Ergamine on the track, because last year's Champion Chase didn't test him. We know that the form is flimsy. That's clear for all to see, and it is going to require a bigger, better performance from him on the track at Cheltenham, I think, this year than it did last year. So personally, I think on the back of what we saw 6-7 weeks ago, he's a vulnerable horse at the price that he is. And one worth taking on. And Edward Stone should be clear favourite. He probably will become the day, to be honest. I think the general vibe amongst punters is going towards Edward Stone, and he's a hard horse to knock in any way. I know he's got that unseat earlier on in the season at Kempton, but aside from that, he's pretty bomb-proof. His jumping is very good. He's put up big performances at the track. And yes, Editor de Gite beat him last time out, but there'll be more pressure on the front end, I think, for Editor de Gite next week, and I expect Edward Stone will be ridden with a little bit more mindfulness of how big a rival Editor de Gite might be, so he'll probably have him a little bit closer up as well.
Okay, and Ergamine, I wonder what they'll do with him tactics wise. Let's have a word with Willie Mullins as trainer.
I imagine it was a sort of a cat and mouse race the last day. You know, so yeah, you probably would be more. You'd probably keep closer order to the ones in front the next time. But I think that'll be a good jump at the first will, you know, be crucial in a race like that. Just to get your jumps in early, get your position, and he can make it or he can come from behind. It's not a real issue with him. I think it'll be more a problem for the horse that's making it, and Edward Stone maybe coming from behind. You know, that he'll have to keep tabs on the one in front.
Good to hear from Willie Mullins and Ergamine. What about Editor de Gite? To put it to you, Ben, has he forgotten about it? Did he not get the credit he deserved maybe last time?
I think he did get the credit he deserved. You know, it was a really good ride from Niall Hannity on the front end, and he's a massively improved horse. We saw that at Kempton. And we saw it at Cheltenham as well. He's got plenty of Cheltenham form in the bank, not just the Clarence House chase. So he's a player. He's definitely a player. But I think he's about right in the market. So I think he has got the credit he deserves.
What wins at Queen Mother?
Edwardstone.
I think Edwardstone wins.
Okay, Betway Queen Mother Championship winner, according to the lads, is Edwardstone for Alan King. The third day of the Cheltenham Festival, let's talk about the Paddy Power Stairs Hurdle. It's a wide open division, and once again, Plays and Cal he'll divide opinion, won't he?
Yeah, he's a talented horse, isn't he? Proven Cheltenham form as well. I suppose you wonder about fragility with him. He's been off the track a long time and put up a big performance last time out, but will he back that up? You couldn't be absolutely certain. If he does, and you know there aren't really any negatives with him in terms of his ability, I suppose, and his ability that he's proven it on the track. But it is an open race. He's been well backed in the anti-purse market subsequent to his win last time out. I think he's got to the point for me where he's a short enough price, and I'd be happy to look elsewhere. And particularly with Marie's Rock now coming into the race as well, that gives it a little bit more depth. And you know, I think she's a big runner. I think the trip will probably suit her. The way that she finished off the Relkeel last time out would give you confidence that I think they're making the right move if they do go down the route of the Stayers Hurdle with Marie's Rock. And I'd be fairly positive about Teahupoo as well, who admittedly has got a lot of soft ground form, but most of his runs on good ground were over 2 miles when he was clearly getting outpaced in those races. And I think over 2 miles he did need it very testing for obvious reasons, that he's not sort of a natural 2-miler. But over 3 miles I think he'll be fine on sort of good to soft ground. And there is a bit of rain about anyway, isn't there?
Flooring Porter trying to win the race for the 3rd time in a row. I think that's some training performance if he can pull that off, Gavin Cromwell.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? And he's done it in identical fashion, hasn't he, the last couple of years from the front end. The question will be if Danny Mullins can dominate again in this Stayers Hurdle. It looks a very different makeup. I think it's more wide open than it has been even in the last couple of years. Flooring Porter obviously comes into calculations, being a dual winner of the race. But I think he has probably got a tougher task this year. I think the French challengers are bang in there.
Yeah.
I really do. And I thought, you know, that the Cleve Hurdle is a brilliant trial for the Stayers Hurdle. We've seen multiple winners come out of that race over the years, and Goldschway, I thought he did it really nicely. Obviously, it was a bit of a stop-start gallop that day, but who's to say it won't be again? And I think he's the one that appeals to me at the prices.
I think it is a race where there'll be a passing of the baton this year, because you can look back over the last couple of Stayers Hurdles with the greatest respect and question them to some extent. You know, there's been a lot of older horses in there, more exposed ones. This year there's a lot of up-and-comers, Blazing Calm, Marie's Rock, Teahupoo, unexposed over Staying Trips, Gold Tweet, who was impressive last time. So there's a lot that come into it upwardly mobile, and I think that form of the last couple of seasons therefore will be vulnerable.
Okay, good luck to young Philip Burns, son of Charles Burns, who'll be on the favourite. I know he's been doing watching a lot of videos and talking to Cheltenham Festival and jockey Fran Berry, who won on Kirawani all them years ago, just about the new about riding Cheltenham, because it's not the most straightforward track, and if this was a handicap he'd be allowed to claim £5. That is a look at the Paddy Power Stayers Hurdle. The Ryanair Chase is a feature chase on day 3 of the Cheltenham Festival, and Shishkin is going to be short price for a reason. If he's like he was at Ascot in the Clarence House, he'll just win, won't he? If you look down what's going to run against him.
I think so, yeah. I think he's a top class horse in a race that's probably devoid of top class horses, and you have to trust that he's in the same form as he was at Ascot, and on his 2 appearances before that there is a little bit of doubt in your mind, but to me he looked like a happy horse at Ascot. He was back to his old self. All the physical ailments looked to have gone. He jumped really well, he travelled, he tore away from them after the last, and yeah, if he's in anywhere near that form, I think he wins this.
Yeah, I think that's true, isn't it? We all know that he's the best horse in the race by a good way if he produces his best form. Now, the risk attached to, for me, for backing him at a short price is the fact that, you know, over the last 12 months he's got a couple of blips on his record that just worry you a little bit, and I think there will be safer short prices over the course of the week for me, with that in mind, I would just hesitate to go all in at sort of even money or shorter on Shishkin because of that. But clearly, if he does return to, in the same form as Ascot, then he's going to be the horse to beat. I thought Fury Road each way was a fair bet in the race. He served it up to Galloping des Champs a long way in the Irish Gold Cup at Leopardstown last time, and Galloping had to work to get past him, and he would have finished second but for a late error that day. Stiff 2.5, stamina test at 2.5 will suit Fury Road well. I think he's a better horse this year than he was last year over fences, and he goes into the race in form. He's got a consistent record, so rather than punting Shishkin at a short price, I'd rather play it safe in the Ryanair and back with Fury Road each way.
Okay, Shishkin to win, Fury Road each way in the Ryanair steeplechase. Okay, best bets day 3.
I'll go Fury Road each way in the Ryanair. I think he'll run well.
I'm going to mention the Turners, Niall. I like Stage Star each way for Paul Nicholls. Mighty Potter, obviously, very hard to pick holes in his chance, but he does have to prove himself around Cheltenham. The only time he's been there was when he was pulled up in the Supreme last year. Not been there over fensive. Stage Star has been there on the new course, which I think is vital. He jumped round there in the Timeform novices handicap chase off a big weight and shaped like a Grade 1 novice chaser to me that day. So I think he's the bet each way against Mighty Potter.
Okay, there's our thoughts on day 3 of the Cheltenham Festival. The 4th and final day of the Cheltenham Festival, we get underway with the JCB Triumph Hurdle. What we do know, it'll go to Ireland because the English novices are rubbish. There's no other way. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks a Willie Mullins benefit, doesn't it? We've got first 3 in the market for Mullins. I favour Blood Destiny. I think ground on the softer side often on the Friday. There's a bit of rain forecast. It's a stayers race, really. It's a race that tests stamina. I think he's got more stamina than Lossiemouth. I think she would probably need the other track and good ground to be able to beat him. So a preference for Blood Destiny, whose form took a boost with Nusrit winning the Adonis.
The question is, who will Paul Townend favour? And I fancy he might fancy a bit of redemption on Lossiemouth after getting in all sorts of trouble at Leopardstown last time out. Obviously unlucky that day, and she, her form before that was looked top class in this division. So I think Townend might be on Lossiemouth, and she'd be the one I favour at this stage.
Okay, so taking each other on, Willie Mullins will win it, but Blood Destiny for you, Lossiemouth for you.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay, let's look at the JCB Triumph Hurdle, first race on the Friday. The feature race of the 4 days, the feature race of the season is the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup, and Galloping des Champs has been the head of the market all season long. How impressed were you at Leopardstown last year? Or this season, he just looks a different horse, doesn't he? Yeah. He was flamboyant and keen going last year. This season, behind the bridle and staying really strongly.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, and he last time out he just dropped his head, relaxed, and was able to therefore see his race out really strongly. And it does add to the idea that he will stay and be effective over the Gold Cup trip. I think he's obviously a very talented, very progressive horse. He hasn't really put a foot wrong, to be honest with you, certainly this season, and he deserves to be market leader. Personally, in what I think is a competitive race, I'm not going to be saying I'd be backing him at sort of 7 to 4, 13 to 8, that sort of price. I'd want a bigger price to be backing him, but his obvious chance is there for everyone to see.
Okay, he is trained by Willie Mullins, and we caught up with him recently about his Star Chaser.
Yeah, this guy probably has more speed than the ones than Album, and similar type of horse, French bred, same colour, but I think probably has a little bit more speed than Album. But we know Album stayed all day, so this fella's got to prove that yet. But every chance he could. I think you think that's enough, isn't it? Well done.
Good luck to Willie Mullins, a couple in the race. Are you with Galloping des Champs at the price?
Not at the price. I think he's priced up like he's been there and won the Gold Cup before, and he hasn't. And he's got that extra couple of furlongs up the hill to prove. I think he's got everything you want in a Gold Cup horse. He's got speed and I think he's got stamina and loads of class. But I think it's a deeper renewal than what he's priced up as favourite. So I will be taking him on, albeit probably a little bit reluctantly, because you've got to respect his chance.
Let's rattle down a few more. The best piece of form is Brave Man's Game King George. Is that right? This season?
This season. It probably is, yeah, probably. Yeah, it would be a toss of a coin between him and Galloping Deschamps probably, and yet there's a massive discrepancy in the prices, isn't there? But the best piece of form is Applutard from last season winning the Gold Cup, isn't it? But obviously we know the queries there with the problem that he's had.
Pulled up a head up, withdrawn at Leopardstown by vets. Be a big. I'd love to see him back because I thought.
Yeah, I mean,
last year.
On the positive side to Applutard, he's put up big performances fresh in the past. You know, last season's Betfair Chase, he put up a massive performance to win it hard held by a wide margin, first time out in his season. So he has done that previously on the back of absences and put up big performances.
Noble Yates.
Yeah, I'd bracket Noble Yates and Statler together as potential winners if it became a real test of stamina, if there was a bit of rain around and they went hard and the stayers come into it. I think you've got to talk about Noble Yates and Statler. But in a good to soft ground Gold Cup, I think they could be done by the class horses, the likes of Galloping Deschamps and Brave Man's Game, Applutard, who have just got too much speed for them. Noble
Yates and Statler like 7-8 to 1, Conflated 12 to 1. I don't understand that personally.
No. I mean, I think Conflated's got a good each way chance. He probably wouldn't want it to be a real stamina sapping test on really soft ground. I think he's a horse overstaying trips that's got a bit of pace. He ran in the Ryanair last year. He was going to run well, but ultimately, you look at the horses that he's been beating and the way that he's been beating them, likes of Kemboy and Fury Road, the horses that Galloping Deschamps has been beating as well, and not in dissimilar fashion, really, to be honest with you. And Conflated's a significantly bigger price. I do think he's overpriced for a horse that's having his best ever season. He seems much more amenable nowadays and much more consistent than he was a couple of years ago.
Ahoy Seigneur, his form after Christmas, last couple of seasons. Does he make appeal? Both of you are looking at me.
Well,
no.
He's just got a big clumsy mistake in him, hasn't he? And you just can't win a Gold Cup by clouting a couple of fences. And I just can't see him putting a clean round in to enable him to beat this field. I'd love to see it, but it's not for me.
No, I mean, I don't rate that Cotswold Chase form at all, any of those horses. I can see some of them running well, you know, Noble Yates maybe plugging his way into fourth or third or fourth.
He'd be the one from that race, I think. Noble.
Yeah, he would be, but I'd be disappointed if he was good enough to win it, given the quality of some of the other horses in the race. So I'd just generally, that form line, Ahoy Seigneur, Sounds Russian, Noble Yates, I could see some of them running respectably, but no, I'd be disappointed if they were up to winning the Gold Cup.
Oodle's Cheltenham Gold Cup is won by?
I mean, I'd say Conflated would be the each way bet in the race at this moment in time, but look, if you told me you were back in Applutard, I'd have no qualms with that. Galloping Deschamps deserves probably to be favourite, but he is a little bit too short.
I think the market's got it right at the top of the market, but I'd be looking to take on Galloping Deschamps, Brave Man's Game each way with something. I quite like Capodanno each way. Right. You know, he beat Fury Road convincingly at the Punchestown Festival last spring. His reappearance in the Red Mills Chase, giving all that weight away over an inadequate trip, I didn't think was too bad. And you know, each way, I think he might get into the frame.
Okay, what else are we looking forward to sum up day 4?
Ooh, Albert Bartlett Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
As it's known. I like Favre de Champdou for Gordon Elliott. He won that Limerick Novice Hurdle at Christmas that always produces festival winners, including in the Albert Bartlett several times, the likes of Martello Tower. And he won it very nicely, Favre de Champdou, by beating a horse of Gavin Cromwell's a long way, who's come out and franked the form since. And he missed a year through injury, and I think he's well developed and mature for a novice hurdler, and I think around 10 to 1 he'd be the bet of the day for me.
Good stuff.
Well, someone asked me the other day for a banker's Trixie, so I gave them Gaillard de Menil on day 1.
Yep.
Edward Stone for the Champion Chase, and on the Friday Impervious, who would probably be my nap of the week in the Mears Chase. Allegory de Vassy does go out to her right, doesn't she? I don't think she'll be fully effective on the track, and to be honest, I think Impervious's form is better anyway. Okay. She's unbeaten over fences, very, very solid. 2.5 at Cheltenham will be perfect for her, so Impervious to get up my banker's Trixie on the Friday.
There you go. What more can we ask for a Trixie? As we're going to leave you with something very special with the Cheltenham Festival just around the corner. We're going to exit stage left, and very shortly Dave Ord is going to come in with Dan Barber, and he's also going to be catching up with Cheltenham Festival winning jockey from all them years ago in Kirawani. I'm sure you all remember him, Fran Berry. From us, goodbye.
Well, thanks, Niall. Great show as ever. That's contractual, I have to say that. But I'm delighted to be joined by Dan and Fran, the new dynamic duo in racing. They've joined us for the final section of Get Stuck In, and this is our penultimate show. We're back for the last one in the series for a Grand National special. But Dan, we're going to get a horse from each of you for each day of the Cheltenham. You get first dibs at Tuesday. What are you putting up?
Constitution, no. I'm going to go with the ultimate and Happy Go Lucky to right the wrong of 2 years ago when he was made favourite and ran into Vintage Clouds, who was running in race for the 5th time. Happy Go Lucky will be running it for the 2nd time, but that's obviously no barrier. And I think there's been lots to take from his 2 runs this season. 3rd in a really strong rehearsal, and then he ran over the wrong trip. Freshened up since. Could do with the yard in slightly better form, but I think that's factored into the price.
Fran, Tuesday's probably the best day, the British's best day in the Prestbury Cup. I think we'll be getting the scoreboard on the Tuesday at least. What have you found for day one?
Dave, look, very, very obvious, but maybe another angle that people maybe haven't looked into. Gaillard de Menil is obviously a standout in the last race today, the National Hunt Cup chase. Patrick Mullins will ride. He's a novice by default, having been campaigned at a high level last year. Ran great at the festival last year and he was 3rd. He ran a superb race as a novice in the Irish Grand National. He's running short trips against Mighty Potter this year. Looks like he's been trained for the race, and I think he's day one Irish banker of the meeting. He's a standout, but even more interestingly, if you like, he's 16-1 generally for the Grand National. Were he to win that race on a Tuesday by a wide margin, I could see him going into something like 10-1. So maybe I've done it, maybe that's the play.
Fantastic. Fran, you can go first on the Wednesday, day 2 of Cheltenham.
Yeah, good. Last race, I'm in the last race of the day camp as well, David. I'm going to hedge my bets. The Champion Bumper, no standout horse for me. There's a lot of horses that have been impressive. I think one horse has been underestimated just because he got beaten the last day by A Dream to Share is Fact to File, trained by Willie Mullins. I know A Dream to Share beat him quite well at the Det in Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, but this horse, he took all day to win over 2.5 miles at Christmas time. He had a big reputation, slow pace at the Dublin Racing Festival. It turned into a sprint. I think the horse, the flatbred horse, A Dream to Share, beat him for a turn of foot. Cannot see that materialising at Cheltenham. I think it'll be a true test. Often is in the bumper. I think his stamina will come to the 4. He's a general 10 or 12-1 chance. I think in an open year he's good value.
The nicest horse I think I've ever met at stables. He was the star of the show when we were Willies the other day. Dan, the Wednesday horse.
Slightly shorter price, I think, but I do think Edward Stone's a potential good thing in the champion chase. I think he's the best 2-miler in training, bar one piece of form, which is an Ergamine's War with Shishkin. That may be £2 or £3 better than what Edward Stone did in the Tingle Creek, but for me, an Ergamine's form in winning the race last season is way removed from what Edward Stone achieved that day at Sandown, and I thought he ran an absolutely massive race from too far back in his prep race, and why shouldn't it be a shorter price based on that? He beat an Ergamine, and he would have beaten him even if an Ergamine hadn't made that mistake. So Edison Jagit, likely front runner, but you've got Gentleman Demi to get involved. They might ride an Ergamine handier as well. I just think everything sets up well for Edward Stone to confirm himself the best 2-miler around.
Edwardson to swoop then in the champion chase. Thursday's best bet, Dan?
I'm going handicap again. So Scottish in the plate. It's unoriginal. He's an Emmett Mullins JP trained favourite in a competitive handicap. It's a race they won with the Shunt 2 years ago when he was completing the double, the 100k double after winning the Moor Battle at Kelso. He's gone a different route, but he won in a style at Carlisle earlier in the season that I think made intentions clear that we want to get him as favourable a mark as possible. And then his last run, he ran over 2 miles, Boot Hill's backyard, 2 miles Ascot, quickest ground. He was in his element, and So Scottish made up so much ground on him from 2 out, was pulling clear the rest all the while. Step up, back up in trip is the key thing, and just an unexposed horse, I'm sure will be rated 150 plus before long.
Fran, Thursday.
Thursday, going to keep it very simple. Mighty Potter, both him and Gaillard de Menil, I think, are the two of the shorter price horse I think he should win. He's been faultless, Dave. What he's done at the Drimore Ferry House, his recent win at the Dublin Racing Festival, the way he jumps. Yes, he's had one bad run, and that was at Cheltenham, but he bounced back to win at the Punchestown Festival in great style. Probably shouldn't have ran at Cheltenham with hindsight. He was checked by the vet at the start. There was obviously an issue there. He was quite an edge before the race. I totally forgive him that. What he's done to date has been flawless. I thought he was jumping in Leopardstown. He looks to do everything so well and controlled. Davy Russell could be his sign-off winner at Cheltenham.
Some story that, wouldn't it? And Dan, Fran, sorry, last but not least, the Friday.
Glutton for punishment, Dave. I'm going to go for the Martin Pipe, the last race of the day. So,
this might be needed. This really might be needed.
Exactly. And look, day 4, you've got the Gold Cup, short price horses, obviously galloping the Champs. You've got the Mayor's Chase. I can't split Impervious and I can't split Algori Devassi. I think they're two very good mares. In a Martin Pipe, the final race today, I must admit, I've backed Spanish Harlem anti-post before we had the last time at double figure prices. I'm not a believer at his current odds of 5 to 1. I'm not sure he's as good a horse as what Willie has won the race with in recent years, but I do respect him. And in comparison, at the weights, I think Imagine, trained by Gordon Elliott, is really interesting. He was second to Hunter's Yarn at Navan recently. He will be better on better ground, and I think he's just been brought to the boil by connections. I'm nearly more interested in him than Spanish Harlem at the current odds and ratings.
Fantastic. Dan?
Well, I'm going to try and split those two mares because I'm fairly firmly in the Impervious camp. I think giving £1 and a beating to Journey With Me, pair well clear of Minella Crooner, is just high-level form for geldings, let alone mares. And yes, Allegory Devassi is a physical freak, and she may be the better horse fundamentally, but the way she jumped would definitely alarm me. We saw this race 12 months ago. Ellie May kept straight and won. Mount Ida was trying to get into the paddock again, and I can envisage a similar scenario. I think Allegory Devassi may be a better mare, but I think under the circumstances, Impervious is really solid, travels, jumps, and finds at the end of her races. I think she'll prove too strong and too streetwise, really, for Allegory Devassi.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Dan and Fran. Their thoughts on the Cheltenham Festival. Your best of luck to you with your own selections over the 4 days at Prestbury Park.